Okay, so I will admit I did not do the best job with keeping up with the role players this season, but we still have the role player all-stars. The one rule is I try not to do repeats. So for example, TJ McConnell would fit into this, but he got in it last season, so I don't really want to do that. Try to have new names, of course. The other thing is there is some cutoff on what a role player is. I don't really know what it is. Try to figure it out as I go. And so we begin with the point guard position as always. The first one is Tyus Jones of the Grizzlies, who has actually been getting less minutes lately. So I'm a little concerned about that one. But for a good chunk of this season, Tyus Jones was the reason why the Grizzlies offense, or just really the team overall, did not fall off when Ja Morant was out of the game. And it's through just being very solid. Making the right pass, making sure everybody's in the right spot on offense, spotting the open guy, whether it's transition, the half court. I mean, he does get some pick and roll possessions. I believe for the season he's got like 228 assists and 47 turnovers. It's something like that. And to be honest, the Grizzlies kind of had like 4 or 5 guys I could consider for this one, between him, DeAnthony Melton, Grayson Allen, Desmond Bane. But I decided to go with Tyus Jones because, well, the rest of the field, it is kind of loaded. Just want to give you that preview. And so now for the backup point guard, which is the way this goes, it's 2 guys from each position. We don't do any wild cards because I don't know why. The backup point guard, the one Celtic, let me have this. It's not Marcus Smart. It's Payton Pritchard, who showed up and was ready to go right away, man. I mean, he was getting real minutes, especially when Stevens finally figured out that Jeff Teague sucks. And Pritchard, you know, he's got a lot of guts when it comes to shooting. He takes some gutsy threes. He's willing to drive to the basket. He'll bust out some floater thing every now and then. And there's also possessions where the play just kind of dies out, and then Pritchard's like, all right, I guess I'll figure it out. It's pretty impressive for a guy who shouldn't be this confident this early in the NBA, and sometimes I do believe he actually can be a starting point guard. I think I said that in a video early in the season. To give you his numbers for the season, he's had 8 points, 2 assists, 2 rebounds, but it's really the efficiency. 59 true shooting, including 42% from 3 on about 3.5 attempts a game. 90% from the free throw line as well. That's pretty nice. Very consistent, very solid. Now we go on to the 2-guard spot. So Tyrese Haliburton's in the thumbnail, so he's one of the guys here. Could you consider him a point guard? Yeah, technically. He plays a lot of minutes with De'Aaron Fox. I'm willing to put him at the 2-guard. And I feel like he's right on the cutoff. 12 points a game, about 10 shots a game. I don't think Haliburton is going to qualify as a role player for very long. I think he's going to be up to 16, 17 points a game next season. But for right now, I would like to put him in here. The efficiency, the passing, a lot of the time out of the pick and roll, but he also just notices plays sometimes. We're just in the flow of the offense. He'll just get it and then just make like a split-second pass to somebody who's open under the basket, or he'll recognize a mismatch or whatever. The three-point shooting has been great. The rotations on defense are there. Of course, I was losing my mind about his defensive rotations when I did that video about him early in the season. And he has been a little worse lately. I will acknowledge that one. Even so, I'd be very excited about him if I was a Sacramento Kings fan. For our next 2-guard, this one was a bit contested. There was Terrence Mann, Lou Dort, but for the backup 2-guard, there's only one guy I could go with, and that is Bruce Brown, who is kind of an anomaly. He's like 6'3", 6'4", whatever, but he plays like a center. He sets screens, he dives to the basket, he grabs a bunch of rebounds on both sides, offensive and defensive. He mixes it up down low. He can defend in the post. It's like, who is this guy? Where did you come from? How did you happen? And the Nets have had a lot of inconsistencies this season, mainly with health, but Bruce Brown has been one of the more reliable things for them. We go on to the small forward position. The other guy in the thumbnail, Mikal Bridges. Is he up for an all-defense team this year? Maybe. I haven't really thought about the all-defense forwards like that, but he could be. And similar to Haliburton, he's like right on the cusp of scoring too many points to really be in here, but I'm willing to do it anyway. My favorite thing about Mikal Bridges is like 3 times a game I remember that his arms don't look human at all, because they're just ridiculously long. I feel like Bridges can just do whatever Phoenix wants him to do on defense. Whether it's defend the opposing team's best player, whether it's slide over for help defense, again with those super long arms. To talk about his offense a little bit more, he might be one of the best cutters in the NBA. And he's quietly a very good passer. Sure, he's not creating offense much for Phoenix, but he keeps the ball moving. He doesn't turn the ball over that much. And he's got just enough off the dribble game to where he can then make the next play to the open guy. And to top it all off, over 40% from three. I would say Bridges is the MVP role player this season. Now for the backup small forward. I know Sixers fans really want me to put Thabo in here, but I'm going to go with a guy on the Knicks, Reggie Bullock, who has been very consistent for the Knicks all season. He's also been a flamethrower from three in the last 6 games. There's been a lot of things to talk about with the Knicks this year. Barrett and Randall's improvement, Derrick Rose not revitalizing his career, but just ending up on a more interesting team than the Pistons, Tibbs being the coach of the year and all that. And I feel like Reggie Bullock has just kind of gone under the radar. I mean, he's started 56 games, 29 minutes a game. Percentages are good. He holds up defensively. I think he's deserving of it. And now we go to the power forwards. Granted, nowadays it can be a little tough to distinguish fours and threes, but whatever. Thad Young of the Bulls, who I feel like maybe made it on one of these, but he's also kind of a different player now, mainly because of the passing. I mean, Bulls fans are calling him Thagic Johnson for most of the season. They probably still are. I mean, he just had 6 assists in this last game against the Knicks, and it's a lot of elbow action. Put him at the top of the key, put him on the elbow, have cutters around him. But Thad has also been making more plays off the dribble, where if defenses don't respect him, he will actually take it himself, and they collapse. He notices the open guy. He's even busted out a couple of passes, kind of in traffic a bit this season. Some passing out of the post as well to guys back at the three-point line. And it's just resulting in him being way more of a source of offense than I think people thought he was going to be. And then on top of that, good finisher. He's never been much of a three-point shooter, but I feel like he's never really killed the spacing too much either. Part of that is because of his offensive rebounding. Another is because he cuts to the basket a lot. And he's good on defense. So, yeah, I think he's proven to be one of the guys the Bulls have to hold on to as they try to build around Levine and Vooch. And now for the backup power forward spot. I'll admit I did have a bit of a tough time getting this one, but I'm going to go Mikal Bridges. I think moving him to power forward has done so much for his game. In fact, I think sometimes he's really been the center, but he's been technically considered the power forward most of the year, and I'm willing to agree with that. And the one stat that I would look at for him is this year about 73% of his two-pointers have been assisted, whereas last year it was 50%. And sure, a lot of that is LaMelo and Hayward, even if they've been out for a minute now. But I also just think when you're at the 4, it's more of an idea of setting screens and just playing off of everybody, cutting to the basket, standing in the dunker spot, as opposed to being on the perimeter all the time. And I just think it's done a lot for him. Besides that, his three-point shooting just got better. I mean, he's up to 40% from 3 this year, whereas before it was a bit of a question of, is this guy going to be able to make shots? Now, I will also say the first maybe 20 games of his season were a bit up and down, and he's been scoring a lot of points lately, but I'm willing to put him in here anyway. So anyway, now we move on to the centers. And my first one is Maxi Kleber, who Basketball Reference considers a power forward. I disagree. You look at his lineup numbers, he's pretty much always playing with Porzingis. I would consider him the center in those scenarios. Sometimes he plays with Dwight Powell, and okay, I think it's a little more debatable there. But to me, Kleber, I feel fine with putting him at center. So the three-point shooting is real. He's at about 42% from 3 this year. And defensively, he holds up well, whether you have him on the 5 or the 4. I feel like he's just nimble enough to move around with some guys, and then he's strong enough to defend some guys in the post. And to me, he's kind of the small reason why I feel like Dallas can be really tough to match up against, because they can put 5 shooters out there and hold up defensively with him and Finney Smith, and Luka has been better. So I do think Dallas could be a bit of an upset team in the playoffs for the Jazz, the Suns, the Clippers. Of course, Porzingis is still the big swing guy in that, but Kleber's good, and I think he's a real pivotal guy for what they do. And the final one, I'm taking a small victory lap here because I believed in this guy when probably some other people did too. I'm not going to act like I was the only one, but still, Jakob Poeltl. Look, Poeltl, it's not always exciting, and I'm pretty sure he just got dunked on by Bam, and sometimes he looks a little uncoordinated and the free throws are bad, but he stands in front of the rim better than most guys in the league. He does a good job on pick and rolls, even if he's not switching all over the place. He finds a way on offense between getting about 3 offensive rebounds a game and shooting like 74% at the rim. He's just a very strong, fundamental player who finally got a bit of a minutes bump from Popovich. And I think without him, the Spurs would be a lot worse this year, even if, again, he's not always the most noticeable guy on the court. And I say that because, as it has been for his whole career, it continues this season. When he's in the game, the lineup numbers are very good. So that's it. I would recap, but I already forgot all the players. And once again, no wild cards because I don't know why.